Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This week's show, we're talking about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Warrior Season 2, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So Vega ends up hooking up Assam and young June with her contact that's going to give them the molasses they need, well, the opium that they need. And it's a guy named Jack, who has his own full-blown operation and stuff, and obviously, some negotiations it ends up going through, but now the problem is Jack was paid to try and store it as well, but he can't store it because he's got too much heat on him because the cops have been cracking down. So it's like, cool, where are you going to store this at? And I was like, well, there's not many places they can store it because they have to make sure it's in a place that Father June doesn't find. But obviously earlier, Penny already reached out to Assam about working there, and I was like, right, you're going to use working at her father's business as cover for where you're going to secretly hide your opium. So I was like, of course, and ultimately that ends up being the case. Sooner or later, we know, like, Penny's going to find out. I don't know whether it's going to be, like, eventually, like, either the mayor or Buckley or one of the two is going to, like, use the police against Penny to try and, like, shut down her business. Like, oh, you must have something illegal here. And then ultimately use that and find the opium there. And that kind of screws Penny up. And, I mean, her and Assam have been in an awkward place since they broke, since she ended things. I mean, she said the things she said because she said she was angry. I at the time, I thought she was doing that, trying to push him away to protect him. But it's like, right, with everything that had going on, once again, she had to have sex with the mayor. She was just because the two different worlds that they live in. So, but she needs security because it turns out, it wasn't a business that we're aware of, but it was one of the businesses that hires Chinese workers that ended up getting blown up by Leary. Of course it was, but I didn't know if it was going to be a business we were associated with. And I love that they brought this all up to the mayor, and I love that Penny's there, and she's actually speaking a lot along with the other businessmen, because I love it's not even a situation, well, I'm sure it helps them that the mayor's wife is on their side and sees things from their perspective, because he's trying to say, like, well, we'll use the police and stuff, but she's like, no, I talked to the chief, and it turns out his forces are already spread pretty thin, and the mayor was like, you talked to him. That's inappropriate. You shouldn't have done that. That wasn't appropriate of you. But it's like, the other's like, no, she's right. Like I said, it's like, she's a businesswoman, and he's most likely hear you. Plus, it kind of gives them, I think, a little more leverage when it's like your own wife is against you, so we're going to side with her. Especially because, hey, at the end of the day, you're the mayor, but she is a businesswoman. She took over her father's business, so we are going to, like, back her. So it's going to be interesting because it puts Penny in a situation where the business owners will probably back her in the long run, and she'll probably end up getting a lot of sway and influence that you can tell later on the way, the mayor looks at her, like, he looks at her with such disdain because she's never been the woman that falls in line when it came to him, especially after everything last season. She's kind of going her own way. She's just kind of like, I'm done with you, and I'm not going to play the docile wife. She never played that for as long as we've known. She's always spoke her mind, but even more so now, she's not going to put up with his bullshit. I mean, he already doesn't like her and her sister because of all her snide comments last episode. Which, speaking of Sophie, it's like, she's definitely playing with fire, and that's going to blow up in her face big time, where it's like, right, Leary ends up finding out who she really is. It's like, oh, you're Mercer's daughter. It's like, well, one of his kids. So it's like, which we know that, I mean, because Sophie doesn't know this, and who knows how much Penny talks to her about this stuff, but it's like, right, he attacked your father's place in the season finale, and that whole situation led to his death. So there's that. Penny also knows he's going around. That he's also responsible for attacking her labor. So it's like, hence why she had to hire Assam and the Hop Way. So there's that side of things. But it's like, you can tell Sophie kind of likes playing with danger. She knows he's a dangerous person, whether she knows. To be fair, she met him under, like, the circumstances of, he was paying respect to his deceased wife and children. So it's like, you saw a softer side of him before you saw him. So just the fact that Sophie's got a certain view of him, but it also seems like she goes out actively looking for danger. And now Leary's in this complicated space because hearing her play Moonlight Sonata, Moonlight Sonata, Moonlight Sonata, Beethoven's song, is like playing that, and then it's kind of stuck in his head, so she's kind of stuck in his head. So that's going to be a dangerous and messy game, especially how Leary comes literally everything he stands for and how he goes about it goes against everything Penelope's going for and standing for. So, and especially when she's hiring, like, not only does she have the Chinese labor, she also has the Hopway being her guard. So if Leary finds out about that, because he made a whole point about him and Assam, like, we're going to settle this. So, but I figured after last episode when they introduced the aspect of, oh, she's going to need security, I was like, well, she probably could ask Assam. I was like, I didn't know if, like, the Hopway would really sign off on it, which they did. I'd assume they had to have run that by Father June. Not unless some of them are like, right, we're doing this because we're getting, well, I guess maybe all they did was justify it by being like, hey, we got this opium and we need, no, because I was like, they can't even tell Father June where they got it. So that's also the thing too. So like, they probably can't explain when they like, I don't know how young June, I guess he picked the people that are the most loyal to him. They're like, hey, you show up here, you do this, you don't ask questions, you don't bring this up to my father or anything. I mean, to be fair, they don't have as many people probably breathing down their neck because it's like Father June, like as long as he doesn't have his eye on it, like it's going to slip by because like his most loyal person is gone, that being Bolo. So he doesn't have Bolo there to probably keep an eye on things. He'd probably be a lot more, he'd be the watchdog kind of watching everything. But without that, the next person in line is young June, but young June's the one behind the shady business that's happening for the Hopway. So of course, like he's, doing his thing. So you just know that it's going to be a hot mess of a situation. I mean, Chow literally said it last episode. Like, this is a very political situation that you are literally going to, like, really screw up. Because I see Father June's perspective in it of, like, right, we just have to make the right moves. We just have to wait because eventually Mai Ling Mai Ling is going to screw this up, which she kind of will just because of everything that's going on. I mean, pressure she's getting from Buckley, and also the fact of the matter is the Funkai kind of under her thumb, but also still too much of a wild card, especially this episode, but we'll get to that later. So he's all about the patient game. Young June isn't. And just for him, it's like, I feel like you're leading things the wrong way, especially because when his dad brings up like, yeah, and your mom, she couldn't handle you, like all the fussing and crying you did as a baby. You were 4 months old. She left you with me and said that you were my problem, which I guess we don't know whatever happened to his mom. Like, I guess she's out of the picture, so we don't know if she's still even alive or not. But for him, it's like, you are the person I trust most. So I need you in this moment to trust me. But Young Jun just can't. He believes his father is wrong, but his father is so stuck in his way, he won't listen. But it's also like, that's the impertinence of youth. You think you know everything. Because that's the parallel where it's like, right, Mai Ling got rid of the old guy in the way, Long Z. But it's like, yeah, I have experience. I know how to kind of run this thing. It's a very delicate balance about running things. Like, yes, you want to get power, but even power needs to be something you have to go about acquiring in like a very particular way, because you rush to it, that can come with all complications, and it complicated things, her rush for power, because it got her involved with the fungi, and like that's complicated at best. It's not like it's a full disaster yet, but it's at the bare minimum it's a complication. So, but obviously Father June is still in play, but Young June is still kind of, he doesn't want to take his father out because it's like, right, I love you, you're the only family I have left, but it's just like, you're not leading the Hopway the right way. You are making us look weak, and that's when people can take advantage of us and take us down. We've run things for so long, and you've left us in a weakened state. So it's going to be interesting to see where things kind of go on that front. There was an interesting storyline we got introduced to this episode. Miss Davenport, she showed up at this, some ladies from the brothel doing their thing, and she was looking for her girls. I thought she meant literally her daughters, but maybe she was referencing some other girls that she's kind of taken an interest in. I don't know if these are Chinese women she's taken under her wing, like, because she shows up at Atoy's place, and it's like, right, so her thing is about like saving these women, specifically Chinese women, because it feels like it's a religious crusade of like, right, I'm trying to help these women find God, like be on the righteous path. It feels like that, which I love that it's like, Miss Davenport, Chow, and she's like, oh, Chow, and he's like, oh, here to save some more of us. She's like, yes, gotta, or someone will, save them or someone else will come and exploit them. And I love Chow was like, well, someone's got to. And she's like, what? Save them or exploit them? And he's like, yes. I was like, I love that. That's such a Chow response. It's like, yes. Oh God, just how slimy you are. But we'll get to Chow in this next. But I'm so interested to see where that goes, because Atoy's making the point of like, right, I employ these women, I give them bed, I give them clothes. She's like, yes, but it's like, yeah, she's saying like, oh, you'll probably justify it to yourself, Atoy. But I think for her, it's the long game of, yes, I am doing this in term. Like I said, I don't know if Atoy started off that way or what her circumstances are. Once again, she can't be bought or sold. But it is kind of the thing of you're off the menu, but feels so fucked up to say that. But right, she's not for sale, but everyone else is, except for Lai. Lai gets the special treatment. Miss Davenport's not going to be able to get to Lai because Lai's like down for like Atoy and her cause, and especially because Lai isn't one of the girls either. Like Atoy treats her almost like her own child and stuff like that. And, so it's almost interesting. Like I said, Miss Davenport's kind of got her like. Like I said, it feels like a religious crusade of like, I'm trying to save you, where it's just kind of like, it feels like one of those things of like, I think you had the best of intentions, but like, to me, I kind of read off of it as like oh, don't you have enough, like, I'm sure Atoy probably looks at it this way too. It's like, don't you have enough white people to save? Why do you have to try and come and save, these lowly Chinese? Why do we, you could definitely tell like Atoy kind of feels like that might be the case. And she, like I said, she might have altruistic reasons, but it can come off a little like, oh, holier than thou, like, no one's going to save you. I shall be the white savior that steps up to save you. And I'm sure that can rub Atoy the wrong way. But especially when Miss Davenport's like throwing it in her face, like, yeah, you're doing this to your own people. It's like, yeah, but they can go. Like, I'm not holding them here. I'm giving them an opportunity. Because Miss Davenport is making all these points, but it's like, what life is there really for any Chinese person? Like, right, you see what's happening with the labor workers, what's happening to them. Like, things aren't going to be better for any Chinese woman. So it's like, not saying like there could be, I don't know what the other options are for a Chinese person in America in 1878. I don't know what prospects you can really have. That's where I'm like, it's that complicated thing of like, it sucks they have to like sell themselves, but it's like, Atoy looks after them and takes care of them, so that's better than it, but it's like, would you, because her thing is like, she's doing this towards Atoy and her business, but she has gone to other establishments. It seems like Atoy's the only like Chinese establishment, but I'm sure she made it clear, like she said she went to other establishments, so it's not like it's just a Chinese thing. She is going after other, like, as I said, kind of like that white knight aspect of it. It does seem like she's going to other, like, white establishments trying to save sex workers' souls type of thing. But we'll see, because I can see that line between like the prostitution, like sex workers versus like the human trafficking thing, which I don't know if human trafficking is really a term in this time period. So that line between the two, I can see like it blurs. So especially for any person that's Chinese, especially a Chinese woman at this time. So that's going to be an interesting storyline to see kind of developing where that goes. But speaking of Chow, we found out what his secret was. Like, we knew, like, he had his very particular proclivity of, like, yeah, he loves some white women. And it turns out he has a child with one. So that's the secret. So even Atoy knows about that. And he went to visit her just to kind of give her some money. Claire is the baby mama. But I don't know if enough people probably can recognize whether, like, I'm not good at that, like looking at the child's face, seeing whether she has like Asian features or not. Because I don't know if anyone else has kind of picked up on that. Like, maybe it's diluted enough, but I'm saying in this case, it's a better thing that it is, because the less she looks like Chow and more like she looks like her mom, the more she'll be able to just have that's why I feel like it's probably not, like, I'm sure someone who's very good at recognizing, like, oh, you could see, like, maybe she has a very distinct Chinese features, but looks white, but still has, like, distinct Chinese features that maybe no one else can quite pick up that she is, or maybe her mom's just done a really good job of kind of keeping her away from other people. But Chow kind of jumped on Claire when Claire was like trying to like, oh, what do you have to say? And called him Papa. It's like, no, don't do that, because I guess because of who Chow is, you put me in this compromising position where there is some leverage people can use against me, especially when he plays a game of constantly using leverage against other people. That's how he makes his business. His information is how he keeps himself safe, how he makes his money. But now you're putting me in a position where, hey, this could be used against me. But also, the last thing you want is this child going around talking about she has a Chinese father, because that's going to complicate her life enough, you know? So why ostracize her enough than she probably already will be? Because it sounds like Claire is a sex worker herself. So like I said, we know he has this proclivity with white women, so I don't know if like that's how their whole situation happened, because she was implying like she isn't like hooking, you know? So that's definitely going to be interesting to see where things kind of go on that front as well, because it's going to be probably a big part of Chow's story this season. You have the whole Lee situation, which his headache is getting worse. Does seem like I said, I don't know if that thing that he's taken is the actual medicine he's taken, but it's not making his situation better. Once again, he did say like, hey, not enough is known about the brain in this point in time. So like there might be some other issues going on there. And then I'm sure there's like a lot of mental, psychological, but probably also like physically, like some damage to his brain that they don't know enough about to help him. But yeah, he's got a headache, goes out for drinking. And at first, with a black bartender, I was like, is this a black bar? But it's like, no, there's white patrons there. So I was like, interesting. Like I said, on the totem pole, like black people are not like well liked in this time frame, but it's still like you're better than the Chinese in that regard, because it's like, hey, you're not, the black people aren't, it's a complicated thing. Like, yeah, they were cheaper labor because they were slaves and now they're free. So I don't know if that like lower level like labor is still there. I think Chinese labor has kind of subsided. The black labor, that's my understanding. That's why it feels like some Irish, like Larry, has beef a little bit with black people, but not as much as he does with the Chinese labor, because it's like, once again, your circumstances of coming to this country are different. So either way, circling back to Lee, the bartender reminded him so much of Nora. And, you know, she's like, oh, do you want to go? Like when she was like, I'll give you fair warning. But I thought she was going to warn about like, hey, those guys over there, you might want to be careful flashing cash like that. You might get jumped. Oh, did not know she was kind of honeypotting him and kind of helping drug him and, jacking him. Unfortunately, he didn't have his badge and everything on him, because they have no idea they just robbed a cop. They probably will eventually. I'm curious, will Lee try and track Abigail down? Not necessarily for the money. Maybe he'll start for the money, but then like maybe something else will spark from that. Or it just could be like, hey, like he's out and about with Bill and they're cops and Abigail sees him and maybe Lee doesn't say anything. I could see that being a storyline element. Like, right, she finds out he's a cop and expects him to say something and do something, but Lee doesn't. He keeps it to himself. It's like, right, whatever you need, you probably need to do whatever you need to like get by. He's going to be like, because he doesn't make much of a fuss of it when he wakes up. Like, oh, well, I got rolled. Oh well, it just kind of moves on and showed up to work like there was nothing. So, but you can tell Bill recognizes like, at least this has not been the same since last season. Understandably, like I said, brain damage can alter a person's personality, but I think he's just like the headaches and just like I said, I think it's a physical thing with his brain, but there could also be like emotional and mental stuff kind of playing a part in that. You know, I'm sure like seeing your dead lover again in front of, like when he saw Abigail and just immediately thought of Nora in his drugged up haze, literally seeing her as Nora complicates things, I'm sure. And I think that's probably going to be a reason why he's probably going to cut her some slack about robbing him. We'll see. Maybe he will be a lot more like, oh, like you robbed me, you do know I'm a cop. Maybe he'll push it more. We'll see. Speaking of Bill, trying to, for one, still doing his thing as the Funkai's, repo man, I guess. They're collectors. What the right term, I guess, would be in that regard. I love that guy. He's like, oh, you might have broke my ribs. He's like, and then hits him again. He's like, that's what you get for making me run. But it's like, yeah, he's trying to wine and dine his wife, but she's like, where are you getting this extra money? He's like, yeah, there's a swordsman killer out there, extra shifts and stuff. But she's like, no matter what, you don't have to wine and dine me. I love our life. I get you want to give me everything, give me and the kids everything you didn't have growing up. But, I don't need a necklace or steak. It's like, honestly, save the money. Like, don't be spending it on frivolous stuff. Like, save it because you never know when things are going to go. But, it's Bill trying to make the best of it. It's like, right, I'm on the Feng Kai's, like, boot, but at the very least, I'm able to take care of my family, because before, if I didn't handle the situation if I didn't let it play out this way, my family would have been targeted eventually, or I would have, especially because he has to make a promise to us. So I feel like, no, I'm going to be okay. And it's like, well, that's the thing. He handled the Damon situation the way he did. Eventually, someone else, especially if Leary finds out what you're doing. You saw what happened, what he did the last time he found out, you purposely sicked Leary on Damon, and then just Leary had you finish Damon off. But yeah, you're in that same boat, so Leary would have the same beef with you. Probably if the other cops found out, Lee'd probably have some words with you, but he'd probably also try not to judge you too much. But like if your chief found out about it, or if your other fellow cods found out about it, it's like you're a kind of traitor to the cause. So that could end up backlashing on him. So I think all that's kind of running through his mind, but he's kind of taking it one step at a time. I don't think, there's no real getting out of this situation. The Feng Kai owns him, and there's no like, oh, this is no longer a debt thing. It's like, no, this is your job. It's kind of also your fault, because if you had never killed their guy, you could have done some stuff to pay off your debt. But it's also, that's anything with a debt situation. Like, people will always move the goalposts just because they're going to keep you in debt so they can keep you under their thumb. So, speaking of the Feng Kai, there starts being this other Tong, a smaller Tong, starts distributing opium, and Mai Ling's people found out about it, and they were going to kill the guy to send a message, but Li Yong is like, yo, the leader of that group, he's super young, let me talk to him. And the moment Mai Ling was like, okay, fine, you can do it. Take Zen with you. And I was like, that's the Feng Kai guy, isn't it? And it totally is. I was like, I think that's the first time they've ever mentioned his name in the show. But I was like, you're asking for trouble bringing him along. And it's like, all right, everything seems like it's kosher, because like the guy who's the leader of this smaller Tong is like, no. He was just selling leftovers he had, because Mai Ling sees this as the Hopway have had control over the opium trade forever. We broke that mold, and now we've taken a slice of that pie. Others are going to try and slip in a little bit. Hey, we do a little bit. It's like, right, if we don't stop this now, other people are going to start cutting into our territory. And it's like, no, this is our business. We are the ones who legally have the rights to have this. It's not anyone else's place, because they're going to be cutting into our profits. But the problem is, Zen doesn't believe the guy, which I think the guy would probably, who knows? But the guy's like, yo, he lied to your face, turns into the whole brawl. Zen even pulled, since someone already in the show did it, yeah, I was about to say, Assam did it last season, where you grab someone's throat and kind of rip out their jugular a little bit. He pulled that move. And you can tell from the way Li Yong was fighting, he was breaking bones, but he wasn't killing anybody. Like some of the other Longzi were, but definitely the Feng Kai, Zen and his people definitely were killing. And he made the whole point to Li Yong. It's like, oh, you're Mai Ling, you're gonna rattle me to Mai Ling. She already knows what's what. Why do you think she went through the trouble of inviting me told me to come along with you? She knew exactly what this was gonna be. And for Li Yong, that's kind of an eye-opener where he's like, the woman he had fell in love with, yes, she was ambitious. Yes, they had their ambitions and goals. It still kind of was hard for him. He accepted it, didn't make it easier, but he still had a hard time swallowing the fact is that she's the one that killed Long Z. But he kind of moved on. It's like, all right, it wasn't Long Z's time anymore. We're gonna do more with the Long Z. We're gonna make it more powerful. But now it's the problem of right, you're kind of a little bloodthirsty. Whereas once again, the ignorance and bloodthirst of youth, where it's kind of her and her brother are a lot more in common than either one, because both of them are just very stuck in their ways of they've got to prove a point. she's got to prove a point because she's got to keep, like, it's like, right, it's one thing, you're a woman in this space, so you always got to prove a point because everyone's going to try and think you're weaker because you're a woman, so you always got to do that. But it's also, it stems from a lot of, her own circumstances, like the, her husband and everything that she was sold off to back in China, that and everything. Like, she's had so many people dictate her own life that she now gets to dictate the rules. So for her, it's like she's ruling with an iron fist to kind of make up and compensate for all the trauma she's carrying from her life as Zhao. So, and that's going to come in conflict with Leon because the Mai Ling in front of him isn't 100% the woman he fell in love with. He's seeing that part of her disappear more and more with each day. So how he comes to terms with that is definitely going to be interesting. Mai Ling also hires a former Pinkerton to investigate Buckley because she needs insurance policy because he made it pretty clear of like, we're not partners. I buy, you sell, or was it I sell, you buy, whatever the case may be. Like, the fact is, our partnership could always change in an instant. Don't think we're on equal footing because it's like, right, your pockets are getting lined, but for him, it's like he has a bigger play in mind, and he feels like Mai Ling isn't helping all. Once again, blood needs to spill in Chinatown to really push the Exclusion Act. Like, I'm curious, does Mai Ling know that he's doing that? Like, does she think she's going to be impervious for what him and the senator are trying to aim for on the political side of things? I mean, I think Mai Ling is so focused on her side of things. Well, because we did get introduced, was it last episode? They made that whole point of showing that Buckley picks up a very specific sex worker. So it's like, what's that all about? That must have something to do with the dirt that Mai Ling's going to have on Buckley to kind of shift the dynamic. Because he's the one with all the power in their association. Don't even want to call it a partnership because he doesn't see it as a partnership. So, especially with everything going on, because the senator, for one, he threw the mayor under the bus, being like rallying everyone, which even the police chief can be like, yeah, I see through that BS, and everyone's getting swept up in it. They're going to be voting and pushing for this millionaire, and then later on going to be asking the question of, well, why are we still getting screwed over? It's like, yeah, you got to put him in this position, which even Bill's like, right, you would typically know all about politics, and the chief's response was, yeah, but now he's fucking with my department. He's throwing me and my department under the bus. That's kind of like the screwed up thing of like, he can do whatever he wants to. He can manipulate things to be what he wants, play the political game, but I have an issue with it when he throws me under the bus. So they haven't really made enough progress on the swords person case, which they are tiptoeing in the right direction because Lee pieced it together. Like, okay, so 4 of our victims, the victims from last episode and the 2 original victims that kind of started all of this, their connections were they were all going after Chinese people. So like, right, this was a vengeance type of thing. But what about the 2 that died, the businessmen in the business? Like, what's up with them? It's like, well, the fact is he still can't piece that together. But the last person to meet with them was Patterson, and his whole situation is, once again, paying attention to, like, right, this land he was trying to buy was going to be for $2,000. He paid $3,000 extra for it. And even Lee was like, I've looked around like any other land around that same size. No other place is in that same range. So why would you pay that much over? So it's a starting point. And even Bill recognizes, because Bill went out of his way to be like, have you worked with the Chinese before? And he's like, why would I? So... But Patterson's getting nervous, understandably, because it's like, wasn't expecting it to ever kind of link back to him. So at the very least, Bill and Lee are on the trail. Lee probably even more so because of everything with his headache and just everything that happened. He is like just working instead of sleeping. So he's really focused on this. He'll probably be the one that kind of eventually tie this back to Atoy, because she'd even brought it up to Chow last episode, and it's kind of I brought it up previously. Like, she also has that defense of, no one's going to think she's the swords person because she's a woman. Like, it's a time frame to underestimate women, and just like, because they never think a woman be capable of such brutality as like that. But it's like, yeah, she is. So But that's going to be the thing of when stuff leads them in that direction, they're going to probably think like, oh, no, there's no way it could be her. They'll probably think maybe Atoy hired someone or someone close to Atoy. I don't think they're going to think it's Chow, but you never know. If they might think it's Chow and he might have no choice but to kind of give up Atoy before it screws up his whole circumstance. So, lot of very, very interesting developments. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.